D9.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and Commission members. My name is Wendy Rhodes with the Planning and Zoning Department. This case is a PUD amendment known as 211 South Lamar, but also commonly referred to as the Taco PUD. It is located at the southeast corner of South Lamar Boulevard and West Riverside Drive, and the Ladybird Lake is to the north, and the city-owned pitch and putt golf course is across the street to the east. And then there are condominiums to the south. The applicant is proposing to amend the PUD that was approved by council in October of 2013. Specifically, they would like to alter the building configuration, to remove the parking requirement, to place it all underground, and to add hotel as a permitted use. The proposed project is for 27 residential units, which are planned as condominiums, 108 hotel rooms, and 18,000 square feet of non-hotel ground floor space. Please note that there is, other than the added use of hotel motel, there is no change proposed to the maximum 96-foot height limit that was approved in October of 2013. The proposed modifications in summary are to place the parking garage entirely below grade, to change the west building block, to move the 96 feet further west of Barton Drive, Lee Barton Drive, and to increase the height of the second, which is building block, which is on the east side, to 86 feet. These changes were based on discussions with the Bridges of the Park Condominium Association. Another provision would be to add perimeter trees to be installed with 1,000 cubic feet of soil volume, to update the affordable housing program, to fund the transportation improvements that are defined in the traffic mitigation memo that's included with this packet, to construct 100% of the corridor bond improvements along the Lamar and Riverside frontages in accordance with the South Lamar corridor program, to remove parking along Lee Barton Drive to reduce the trips from approximately 3,300 to 2,300, to construct the building using a purple pipe system to receive reclaimed water supply from the city, and to upsize the stormwater pipe along Riverside from 18 to 24, and to along Riverside to the Ladybird Lake, a second segment from 18 to 30 inches. The staff is recommending this PUD amendment. I would like to note that this did go to the Small Area Planning Committee. It did not receive a recommendation. It went to Environmental Commission last week and did not receive a recommendation. However, the environmental officer has provided a memo identifying the environmental superiority for the PUD and the PUD amendment. Tonight, the applicant and the owners of the condominiums to the south have a private restrictive covenant. The applicant also met with the Zilker Neighborhood Association, and Zilker is opposed to that. There is correspondence that was attached as late backup this afternoon. And tonight as well, I have staff from Austin Transportation Department and the Housing Department, as well as the environmental officer. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is the applicant here? Come on up, sir. You'll have 5 minutes.
Do I have some assigned time that takes me to 9 minutes, maybe?
Not in front of me, but if they'll raise your hand, yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Commissioners, I'm Steve Drenner on behalf of the applicant. So pleased to be here with you tonight. I think we have a really good proposal, and I'm anxious to tell you about it. Wendy did a good job of running through the history of our site. I'm just going to make sure visually that you have a feel for where we are. This is a hard corner of Riverside and South Lamar. If you know that corner, you know where the Taco Cabana used to be, and then the parking lot for the Paggy House. I'm the tenant in the Paggy House. Part of the agreement back in 2013 was to park the Paggy House uses in this garage. So the garage will help sustain the ability for the Paggy House to continue in perpetuity. As you see, currently zoned PUD. This is showing that we're in the Butler Shores portion of the waterfront overlay. And this shows that we're not in either the primary or the secondary setback for that area. As Wendy said, the PUD that we're hoping to amend was approved in 2013. All of the superiority items that were listed in that PUD continue. So no changes to those superiority items at all. In addition to that, we have a variety of things that are new and enhanced superiority items, and I'm going to focus on those. The uses are, as Wendy suggested, the 27 condos and 108 hotel rooms. The height remains unchanged, as does the maximum FAR. The new proposal would allow a hotel use. It would shift the off-street parking fully below grade. There was at-grade parking that was allowed with the prior PUD. We've got some very minor changes to the building layout. We've got a substantial increase to the community benefit package, but we have no new code modifications. So we're asking for no relief from those site development regulations other than what was in the original PUD. Transportation, there's a variety of things that are improvements here. We're complying with the new South Lamar corridor plan. We have a substantial amount of money and effort in cleaning up the Riverside Drive frontage, where you have that sort of confusing two-lane that goes to one-lane situation between Lee Barton and Lamar. Our use reduces traffic by about 1/3. Importantly, we're eliminating any exiting traffic onto South Lamar. The previous plan had a access point right in, right out onto Lamar, and that handled not only retail traffic but multifamily traffic. That has gone away and is now a service drive right in only. So we've eliminated that exiting traffic onto Lamar, and then we have a variety of additional traffic pedestrian improvements. So as you walk yourself around the site, the area closest to the bridges on the park is where that service drive is, and now is a service drive that will handle probably maybe 12 vehicles a day versus hundreds in the old plan. It is also covered, and you'll see some pictures later on to make that a very a nice spot that will enhance the bridges and the Paggy House as well. This is the provision in the original PUD that limited vehicle trips, and then you see the portion in our TIA memo that shows total number of trips. And then these show sidewalks. The sidewalks on the east side were provided for in the original PUD. The crossing, the safe crossing across Riverside, is new, as are the corridor improvements shown in blue. So when you look at this as a whole, and you especially think about the relationship with the Pfluger Bridge and the lake, we really have an all-inclusive pedestrian network that will work not only for the people who stay and live here, but also the people who will come from the trail looking for a coffee shop, which we will have here to accommodate them as they come off of the trail. This is a perspective that shows you the corner at Lee Barton and Riverside, and also shows you the additional planning and so forth that helps lead into the building. There's a separation right in the middle of the buildings between the condos and the hotel that will lead people into that courtyard. Stormwater is another area of substantial improvement. This is a new stormwater line. One of the issues that staff had was that there's been a fair amount of flooding down at this low point as we come down the hill toward the lake. And we are modifying pipe sizes and putting pipes in new locations on our property, not once it crosses Lamar, but we are enhancing those pipe sizes. The impact of that is we're more than doubling stormwater conveyance as it hits the lake. So we should have a very substantial positive impact on flooding in that area. We're going from currently 40 cubic feet per second to 96 cubic feet per second. Code today would be 46.5. That's at a cost of more than $500,000, but again, seemed to be the right thing to do. Reclaim water, staff has asked us to hook up to the purple pipe system, even though the purple pipe system won't be to our spot. So we are having to double plumb the building so that when purple pipe is available to us, we can hook up. We have agreed to do that. Affordable housing is probably the most significant enhanced community benefit. The original proposal was a fee in lieu back in the original PUD of about $439,000. There was no on-site affordable housing. The original PUD allowed up to 175 units. What the owner found out in doing the due diligence was that it was better to do 2 stories of underground parking rather than 3 because they hit the water table. Therefore, what was modeled was about 110 luxury units. So you would have had no affordable units here and about $439,000 of payment to NHCD. Our proposal is significantly enhanced. We would increase that payment to NHCD to $1.2 million. And in addition, we have worked quite hard with foundation communities and have found that what they were looking for was another site to do essentially what they had been able to do with the Bluebonnet Studios project. That's been very successful for them, and they have a long waiting list at that project. We located the site, we put the site under contract, and we have guaranteed them the funds so that they are able to buy that site. They have done the due diligence at this point over the last couple of weeks and think that it'll produce 80, maybe as much as 90 units on South Lamar, every single one of them affordable, and affordable at deep levels. So let me close
thoughts,
just by showing you where that South Lamar site is. It's
Final thoughts, sir?
1508 South Lamar. Happy to answer questions.
All right, we'll call you back up after the public hearing's closed. I've got Amanda Swore, and you have Kate Nieski donating time. Okay, thank you. You'll have 6 minutes.
Not as tall as Steve. Good evening, Commissioners. Amanda Swore, also with Renner Group. This is the letter we talked through. I get to talk to you about the building layout and the design and how everything works. When you looked through your backup, you saw in the ordinance a bunch of building setbacks that were 10 feet here, 5 feet here, a 10-foot point, all a little confusing if you can't see it on paper. What this shows is what that building footprint really looks like. So the building on the left in the red is the building layout under the existing 2013 PUD. The building on the right in blue is what those setbacks translate to under the 2019 PUD amendment. What you really see here is a larger courtyard and the building pulling up significantly along Lee Barton Drive. Showing that to you a little bit differently, this is a real picture that was taken from the 6th floor of the Bridges on the Park closest to this project, looking towards downtown. You see the actual balcony in white on the bottom left. This is a massing of the existing PUD, the 2013 PUD with setbacks. This image is what those setback changes do. It really pulls the building further to the north, creating a larger open space along Lee Barton, and makes the plaza area that faces to the south more visible. What this also really shows is that there's no back to this building. This building is visible from Riverside, it's visible from Lamar, it's visible from Lee Barton and to the neighbors, and it's been designed so that there is no true back of house that you see. You see it's a pretty building on all sides. The second piece that I want to highlight and talk a little bit more in detail about is what Steve mentioned, the drive that will be the service area on the south. If you see on the red building, the building extended essentially all the way to the bridges on the park, with the exception of the white area, which is a joint use access easement. The building in blue, the new PUD, pulled that forward and created that one-way service drive so that you no longer have egress coming onto South Lamar. And the area in green, as Steve mentioned, is a canopy with a green roof. Showing that to you in perspective, this is that same balcony shifted down, and it takes where you would otherwise see a loading area where you have trash, where you have service deliveries, and it covers it, and this truly is designed as a green roof. I wanted to just speak a minute more on the traffic that Steve mentioned in the PUD, that top piece. The language is in there today. There's a maximum vehicle trips of 3,335 vehicle trips. You saw that the building gets smaller. It's about 20,000 square feet smaller, and the uses change. That results in this lower vehicle trips per day number of 2,320. That is in the ordinance, so that number changes in the ordinance. It's not just in a memorandum. Oops, excuse me. The last thing I want to mention is really to do with landscaping and parks around the project. So these are the 8 trees that are required in the ordinance today to be preserved. They will continue to be preserved. The piece I really want to point out is if you look on the north side on Riverside, that largest tree, the top of it hits, the canopy hits about where the curb is. That's where the plaza is intended to be. When you look at the roadway improvements that Steve talked about on Riverside, everything that we're doing back of curb, taking over that lane on Riverside that's contemplated as part of the corridor improvements, that almost doubles the size of that plaza. It means when you come off the Pfluger Bridge and you cross the new roadway pedestrian crossing that's going to be there, the building is its closest point 41 feet. So you have essentially a mini park across from the big park to come in and serve as your gateway across the river. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that there might be.
All right, thank you. Don't go too far. We'll ask you questions after we finish the public hearing.
Thank you.
I've got Bruce Wylands signed up to speak in opposition. I've got a Terry Burnett donating time. Is Mr. Burnett here? Thank you, sir. You'll have 8 minutes.
Okay. Chair, members of the Commission, my name is Bruce Wyland, Treasurer of the Zilker Neighborhood Association. Other members of our executive committee would have been here, but they are meeting with city staff about the Land Development Code rewrite here in this building as I speak. Our full comments are provided in the written document provided to you in backup, and I will try to hit some of the highlights. ZNA opposed the original zoning change to PUD in 2012 when the 10-acre minimum size requirement for PUDs was ignored and allowed to be only 0.933 acres. And the maximum height was increased from the 60 feet allowed in the base CS zoning to 96 feet requested in the PUD zoning. To be clear, ZNA still opposes the proposed PUD project on these same grounds. However, we believe the new project is inferior to the original. The original project had a maximum height of 96 feet for building block 1 and 78 feet for building block 2. The new project is even higher, with building block 1 remaining at 96 feet, but building block 2 increasing by 8 feet. The original project consisted largely of natural materials. The new project appears to be almost entirely glass. The original project had a daily traffic volume of 2,006 vehicles per day based on the TIA worksheet, regardless of the number that was put in the ordinance. The new project has increased to 2,320 vehicles per day. The daily traffic volume of the new project would be even higher if the traffic volume from the retail shopping area had not been reduced from the original projection by what we believe was the questionable decision to use an average rate rather than a fitted curve. The original project, although larger than what ZNA would have wanted, at least provided 175 needed residential units in the neighborhood. The new project provides only 27, assuming they even get built. The 27 residential units is a maximum. There is no requirement in the zoning ordinance that they be built at all. In addition to the preceding comments, I will try to quickly summarize a few other issues that are in our written comments. The language in the ordinance with respect to the height of the project does not seem to make sense. The language seems to propose 2 building blocks, but the second building block appears to be completely contained within the first building block, so it is unclear whether there will even be a second building block. The entire project could be 96 feet high as we read the language. The building will predominate the view along Butler Shores and the southern view from the Pfluger pedestrian bridge as one crosses the lake. It will loom over Butler Pitch and Putt, where the view still feels like a park setting today. However, it will not feel like a park setting when a 96-foot glass building looms over the northern end of the course. The edge of the building will be only 230 feet from Lady Bird Lake, 100 feet from parkland to the north, 50 feet from parkland to the east. This will be the closest building to the lake between South First and Mopac on either side of Lady Bird Lake. While the proposed building is outside the secondary setback for the Butler Shores waterfront overlay, the setback requirement for the Butler Shores waterfront overlay was based on adjacent zoning that required buildings to be a maximum height of 60 feet. A PUD that is granted an increase in height over the base zoning district should be required to meet superior setback requirements. The primary objective of the waterfront overlay is to preserve views and public open space along the river by preventing the construction of tall buildings too close to the river. Allowing a 96-foot high building without increased setbacks violates this principle. The Pollo Tropical restaurant has been closed for over 2 years, so there are no existing vehicle trips to subtract from the site, and all traffic will be additional. The projected traffic is over 2,000 trips per day that triggers a full TIA. This hotel will dramatically change the traffic flow in West Riverside, South Lamar, and Lee Barton. There will be more traffic on West Riverside through the middle of the park and more traffic on Lee Barton adjacent to the Butler Pitch and Putt. The mix of vehicles will also change as more trucks deliver services and supplies to the hotel, restaurant, and retail establishments. Before the PUD is approved, we believe a traffic impact analysis is imperative to determine the traffic impacts on these streets, the Riverside-Lamar intersection, the parks, especially since the new Daugherty Arts Center location may also utilize West Riverside. The land use at 211 South Lamar should be used for housing at a scale that fits into the requirements of the Butler Shores waterfront overlay, the Town Lake Master Plan, the forthcoming new Daugherty Arts Center, and the general feel of an area that is the gateway to our lakefront parks where commercial intensity and traffic generation is explicitly discouraged. Just because the applicant has proposed the rezoning for this hotel condo project, it may not be the project that is ultimately built should financing or other circumstances change its viability. The proposed PUD ordinance could allow an entirely different project that is currently proposed. Note what happened to the previous apartment complex project at this site. As an example of what could happen should the project not go forward, there does not seem to be anything that would prevent the hotel from becoming an office building. Before the Planning Commission recommends passage of this ordinance for rezoning, it should consider the ramifications of the wording in the ordinance if the proposed project should fall through. The affordability issues are complicated, and I will defer to our written comments. However, ZNA believes that any affordability option should be provided within the Zilker neighborhood, not elsewhere in the city, and included in the ordinance. In summary, we believe the Planning Commission and the City Council erred in allowing this site to be rezoned to PUD in the first place. Please don't compound it by allowing a project that produces more traffic and is more out of place with the park setting than the existing PUD. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weiland. I'm sure we'll have questions for you after the public hearing is closed. Mr. Drenner, if you'd like 3 minutes for rebuttal.
Thank you, Commissioners. Let me explain the building blocks. Those are blocks that are touching each other. So one size, instead of having a solid front face that went all the way to the top at 96 feet, we had a indention. So the architects among us would best understand the ability and the reason for doing that. But the height of the building has not changed. The maximum height is 96 feet, and it remains 96 feet. As to materials, I know that's a bit of an eye of the beholder test, but it's not a blank slate. There are requirements in the waterfront overlay ordinance with regard to materials. We will meet those tests. We have to. We have no code modification from meeting that test. Third, I guess the comparison is what I would want you to focus on. We're going to have a 96-foot building here one way or the other. We're going to have a building that's either going to be, in my guess, would be about 110 luxury apartment units, or we're going to have the hotel and the condos. We will also have either $439,000 of cash going to neighborhood housing, or we've got $1.2 million going to neighborhood housing, plus the development at 1508 South Lamar. We're perfectly happy saying we don't get a CO on our property unless we make that donation on South Lamar. So that's not a pie in the sky sort of thing. That's a hard requirement that we expect to see in the ordinance. We think this is a preferable project that does more, and particularly from a community benefit standpoint, does a lot more for this area as well as for the need that we have as a community with regard to affordable housing. I did not mention that we were supported by the Bridges. We're unanimously supported now by the Bridges. They opposed the project in 2013. They are totally in favor of this project. We worked a long time with them. They were our first phone call to make sure that they would support. Secondly, you can see the letter from Walter Moreau with Foundation Communities that's on the board right now that demonstrates that they have been very involved in the due diligence on this site and that they're excited about moving forward with it. So let me stop there and hope that you'll support this project.
Thank you, Mr. Drenner. Commissioners, those are all the speakers that I've got signed up. Is there a motion to close public hearing? Motion by Commissioner Seeger, second by Commissioner Azar. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, any opposed? All right, that motion carries. Questions? Commissioners, questions for the applicant or the neighborhood or staff?
I have a question
Commissioner Hempel, then Shea.
for the applicant.
Okay.
So, Mr. Jenner, you mentioned that the Bridges did not support the previous version of this PUD, and I'm curious why.
The previous version, if you, it's hard to see in plan form, but it was just tighter to their site was one of the issues. They didn't have the setback that this project now allows them at both the western and eastern edge of the project in particular. The other thing that they did not like was that exit point on South Lamar that's been eliminated. And I think that from their standpoint, they wanted it to be more cohesive, to feel like it was part of the Paggy House. And so that's where we came up with the green roof idea and so forth, so that it felt like an overall master plan kind of development rather than something that was just stuck on the front.
Commissioner Shea? Who's your question for?
Let's see. I was going to have a question for transportation, but also this went to the Small Area Plan Joint Committee, so I could give the commissioners just a general overview of that before I ask my question, but it's really, do you want me to do that later or now?
It's 2 minutes of yours to use, so.
Okay. So this did come in front of the Small Area Plan Joint Committee, and we were able to have a pretty good roundtable discussion with the developers as well as those members in the subcommittee, well, in the Joint Committee. We went through quite a few of all the superiority aspects of it and compared to what it was versus what they're proposing now. And I think the consensus was that it was definitely had aspects of the superiority to it. I think we talked about how it enhanced the site and how it related to Town Lake, and I think we liked the improvements to that. I think more of the contentious issues, because it was forwarded without a recommendation. A lot of that had to do more about the use. The question was, is the hotel use the right thing for this site? And part of looking at the waterfront overlay in some of the subdistricts was that it specifically spelled out the uses that were allowed or in it, but then this district didn't really have much of it even listed. So it's questionable if it was allowed or not. I mean, I think it seemed like when it was written that certain districts turned in uses they preferred or not preferred, and some of their districts didn't. So it didn't really say it. So for the PUD itself, it needs to define the use, and that's where we are with the hotel. And I think that was more of the contentious part of the question is, do we want this piece here? And I feel it was, there's those that supported it, and then those, I don't know if there was a specific no, but it was more of an abstaining from some of the commissioners. So it ended up without a recommendation because of that. But I don't feel a specific no, but more of like, what do you want here? Now, I have a question more for transportation about this. And my question has to do with the traffic impact analysis. Because right now, I feel like there's kind of a discrepancy right now. I mean, my thought, it's even more superior than what it was before because of the impact. I mean, you know, everybody knows Lamar at that area, I mean, the traffic can get pretty backed up as it is now. And if we can see that this development compared to what it was before is actually going to be less, then it's definitely better than what they were allowed to do before. But according to what the neighborhood had presented on the traffic impact from the calculations on that, it seems like it's actually more. Where is it actually about this?
Upal Barua, Development Officer and Division Manager, Austin Transportation Department. So when this particular proposal came to us, it did trigger a TIA. But looking at the location of this particular development and looking at the South Lamar corridor plan that we have in the works, we felt that all the improvements that we need along South Lamar and Riverside, those are well identified in the corridor plan, and this particular applicant proposed to contribute to those improvements. Mm-hmm. On top of that, they also proposed to construct some of the improvements identified as part of the South Lamar corridor plan. That's why we decided that this particular proposal is superior.
Okay, so the proposal is superior, but as far as for the trip calculations, I mean, which is the number? I mean, because we are hearing the new development has more trips versus looks like the other side saying the new development has less trips. So
I'll be honest, like I have not compared or have not looked at the comparison between the previous trip generation and this new trip generation.
Okay.
But looking at the usage and the numbers that I have in front of me, it looks like it is going to generate less trips.
Okay.
But I can go back and confirm that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Commissioner Stray, did you want the neighborhood to respond to that, or?
Since I have 40 seconds, please. I want to know where you guys got your numbers to.
34 seconds now.
There were 5 traffic impact analyses done on this. 2 for the first project and 3 for the second project. Mm-hmm. The last TIA worksheet that was performed on the first project came up with 2,006 vehicle trips per day. The number that got put into the ordinance, the original ordinance, was based on the first TIA worksheet, and they added 2,000, which would trigger a TIA to it. And at that time they were subtracting the Pollo Arroyo, the other restaurant that was there, because it was existing at the time. So that's what and the new TIA has more trips than the last TIA worksheet I'm talking about from the original project. Okay. So the actual trips is increasing.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Weiland. Anyone else? Commissioner Schneider?
It's for Ms. Rhodes. Hi, thanks for your work on this, as always. Could you talk about the 2 contributions that the applicant is proposing to make to on behalf of affordable housing? My question is, how we ensure that those happen? Is that part of a proposal that we would make or a decision that the council would make? And
Yes.
what happens if the proposal doesn't move forward? What happens to those promises?
Okay, and we do have neighborhood housing staff here, so I will let them handle that.
Okay, thanks.
Travis Perlman.
Good evening, Commissioners. Travis Perlman with Neighborhood Housing. So in regards to the fee in lieu, the $1.2 million that the applicant is proposing at this point, the current draft, I believe in y'all's backup, has $500,000 for a minimum fee in lieu. So essentially, that $1.2 million would replace that $500,000. That would have to be collected by the Neighborhood Housing Department prior to the issuance of a final certificate of occupancy for the project. In regards to the Foundation Communities, the agreement with Foundation Communities, I spoke with the agent for the applicant this morning about that. I spoke from a very high level, so I'm not really familiar with the exact details of it. My impression is that that's probably have to be in some sort of a private agreement, a private restrictive covenant or something along those lines. I'm not sure that it's necessarily anything that would go into a zoning ordinance.
So maybe the applicant could speak to that then. How do we ensure that the second piece of that actually happens?
Right. In talking with staff, we had understood that you can actually put that in the ordinance. We would also put it in a covenant as well, a public covenant. And the covenant would say that the money has to be donated within 30 days of the city council hearing, and that if it is not spent on that particular site for any reason, that it would go to neighborhood housing. So we don't avoid the cost under any circumstances. The contract is actually in the title company, and it has a closing that is about 30 days after the when we're scheduled for city council consideration. So we would intend that it be covered both in the PUD ordinance as well as a private covenant, and that we be unable to pull a certificate of occupancy on our site if we don't perform.
Any other commissioners? All right. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Shea. Any amendments? Go ahead, Commissioner Schneider.
So just on the heels of the applicant's last comment, I'm assuming that the motion does not have a requirement for the certificate of occupancy to not be issued until the donation of the conveyance of the property to Foundation Communities happens. Is that correct? And if it's not in there, can we amend it to do that?
Yes.
I'm going to ask staff if that's something we can do up here.
I believe so. However, the proposed changes to the ordinance do need to be discussed with legal, including the ones tonight. So.
Okay, I'm going to take that as a yes for now. Is there a second to that amendment? Second by Commissioner Shaw. Any questions to the motion maker?
So
And-
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So this wouldn't fall under the prohibition about linking zoning to affordable housing?
Because it is a PUD, it's a little bit different.
Okay, thank you.
And Chair, I didn't speak to this, but I don't know how many of you guys remember this case back in 2013, but I believe it was former Chair Steve Oliver who said he wanted to vote no on the original PUD because this intersection should have a building with a 300-foot tower here, and going for 96 feet in this spot doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But there you are. That's not for me. You can turn that off. I mean, this is unbelievable. It's a sign of another great sign of our broken land development code, but this is $3.7 million to affordable housing. And you do have to wonder if this could have been a 300-foot building, how much that would then not only foster transit at this amazing spot, but also feed affordability and all the other needs of our city. I hear concerns about whether or not this is going to take away or add to the park setting. If anyone's ever been to this space before, I mean, this is a truly pathetic space in our urban environment. This is an old drive-in taco cabana that does not belong within 10 miles of downtown Austin, in my opinion. I remember the spring conversation. Spring turned 10 over the weekend, and there was a big conversation during the spring zoning, like, oh, it's way too tall. Look at the view from the lake and what it'll do. Spring's actually gorgeous from the lake, and it's a home of many people. And I don't know, I'm excited to watch the surface parking lot go and have another foundation community come in, have a little bit more money for NHCD, and get this hotel off the ground.
Okay. So amendment by Commissioner Schneider.
So I'd like to clarify the amendment. So are we securing both the increased to 1.2 million? Is that embedded in the current motion?
Good question.
Because I thought we had to do something to make that happen.
I heard that's secure and the private is not, is what I heard.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So this is just to the private.
Yeah.
Okay.
And as I understand it, y'all, we are just making sure that there's a way to memorialize this before it gets to council.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
Commissioner Seeger, question?
I have a comment. I would like to request that the private restrictive covenant be initiated and completed prior to second council reading.
Okay. So is that a substitute to the amendment that we
That would be
currently-
a substitute to the amendment to the original motion.
Chair Commission Liaison Andrew Rivera, that's already part of code.
It is part of code, so it will happen even with its private.
Not a private.
This will be a private. We're just asking that it show proof of it being
It can be
approved.
requested.
Okay, thank you.
I think we heard from Mr. Drenner that it was going to be private and public, or some portion of it was going to be public. Is that what we heard, Mr. Drenner?
It would be public, private.
I'm sorry, did we hear that you said, when the question was asked about private, that there was a public component to it?
Yes, this will be a public covenant as well as hopefully something that's in the PUD itself, but it will be a public covenant enforceable by the city.
Thank you, and that was the amendment that Commissioner Schneider made, is to make sure that happens before it goes to council. And it was seconded by Commissioner
The
Shaw.
amendment, yeah.
Okay, any other questions about the motion? Anyone else want to speak against or speak for? Okay, all those in favor of the amendment? Okay, go ahead.
I just wanted to speak for it really quickly. I think that the Drenner Group representing the applicant working with foundation communities is brilliant. You brought the availability of 80 additional units into an area that desperately needs affordable housing, and this meets everyone's needs. I know that the neighborhood does not like the height, but the height is not changing, and the 1 acre is not changing. This was all approved before, and this is a good result of cooperation between two entities, and I really support this type of negotiation.
Thank you, Commissioner Seeger. Anyone else speaking in favor or against
The amendment, right?
of the amendment? Okay, so amendment by Commissioner Schneider, seconded by Commissioner Shaw. The amendment is to make sure the public component of this happens before it goes to council. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries unanimously. Back to the original motion. Commissioner Anderson, you spoke for the motion. Is there any commissioner speaking against or speaking for? Commissioner Shea?
I just want to reiterate what Commissioner Seeger was talking about. I mean, the innovation that was here that was able to bring affordability, I mean, it didn't have to be right on the specific site, but it was still kept in the area. And it breathed life to another foundation community's development. I've toured a bunch of those, well, a few of those, and I mean, the number of lives that it's changed is amazing. And I think if we can have other developers and other developments really think about doing things like this, I think we should see more of this. And I appreciate all the benefits that this is bringing, especially compared to the original PUD. So, I mean, definitely want to be supporting this.
Okay, last commissioner speaking for. All right. Speaking against, any other amendments? If not, let's take a vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? All right, that motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Drenner, Mr. Moreau, Ms. Rhodes. Go ahead.
Of interest, this case will be considered by the City Council on the 19th of September for first
Okay.
reading.
All right, thank you for letting us know that. All right, moving right along.